morning, everyone. My name is Alvaro Ramirez. I'm the CEO and founder of eHarvestHub, where we're connecting small farmers and independent truckers to help them increase profits. Last year, our handful of farmers shipped over 7,000 orders where they met federal level compliance, were able to compete with larger suppliers, and gain brand loyalty by lowering the risk of food contamination in their product. I'm excited to tell you too that this year we released our online marketplace where farmers can connect directly with retailers, as well as our transportation app that allows farmers to connect with truckers and avoid all the middlemen. Our food supply chain is cluttered with multiple layers of middlemen that cause our food to zigzag 7 to 10 times before it makes it to the store and gives zero visibility to available inventory from small farmers. All these middlemen also control all the loads that truckers need to be able to survive, leaving them at the mercy of lower bids. Truckers need three things. They want to be able to make more money per load, they want consistent load, and they want to be home more often than they're on the road. And to be able to do that, essentially manage their business, you have to have access to all those loads, and we do. The other thing that's worries about all these layers of middlemen is that they take up to 35% of profits away from small farmers, sometimes even more, all because they lack volume, capital, and time to market themselves and direct access to transportation. Sometimes we're negotiating prices on transportation, not even on the product. So we fixed this problem by creating the world's largest fresh local produce marketplace that allows farmers, truckers, and retailers to interact without anybody else butting in. And we started this by giving farmers a free traceability solution that allows them to meet FDA regulations and industry standards on food safety. This label collects a tremendous amount of data for us. It tells us everything about the farmer's production, who is currently buying their product, and more importantly for us, it tells us who are the truckers already in this space moving this product, and that lowers our acquisition cost for truckers tremendously. On our marketplace, farmers are allowed to list their product. We aggregate volume across multiple small farmers, essentially giving retailers one location to shop from various small farmers and still be able to meet their demand. They will negotiate prices in real time. For a small farmer, this is a big deal because they have to go attend their field, but they don't want to lose an order because they can't negotiate prices. So being able to do this online gives them access to do that. Once the order is ready, they can hire the trucker directly. Our transportation app has done for farmers and truckers what Uber did for passengers and drivers, or what E-Trade did for stock trading. Let's talk about transportation. This is a big expense in moving produce. A broker, this is a load that's delivered between Santa Maria and LA, that's about 200 miles. They charge $1,200 and they'll pay the trucker $700. On our platform, the trucker can lower the cost for the shipper to $1,000, make $900 and pay us our $100 flat fee. When you combine load, this is where brokers really take advantage of truckers. They'll still charge $1,200 to the shipper, but they'll pay $100 extra to the trucker just to pick up and drop off the second load. With us, still lower the cost more, make $1,400 on the two loads and pay us $100 for each load. On the way back home empty, that broker will still charge $1,200 for another load. We'll pay them a couple extra $100 just so they can make up on their fuel, but makes the bulk of the money. With us, we still get $100 per load, and the trucker is able to make more money. So we don't care whether the trucker is coming or going, the load is a lot cheaper through us. But let's talk about why would a farmer want to use us. On a regular supply chain, this is how they sell their product. Middleman takes up to 62% and the farmer makes about 13%. On our marketplace, the farmer can sell that product, make 50%, and this is on a cantaloupe that you will buy for $2 on the market. With us, they make more money. The retailer can make more money and potentially pass the savings on to the consumer. I don't know about you guys, but I'd definitely like to buy my food for a lot less. And we talked to a lot of retailers, and they're willing to pass savings on to the consumer if they can get direct access to the product. On average, small farmers generate about 3,600 transactions. Unlike our competitors who charge licensing fees and percentages, we charge $3 per order regardless of the volume. The trucker pays us $100 for every load. One order equals one load. So we make about $103 in each transaction. That farmer is worth $370,000 to us every single year. The total market for truckers in the US is about 417,000. 150 is the obtainable market size that we can get, and we actually get access to them through the farmer. Every data that we get is from the farmer. The trucker shows up every day to pick up products, so that's how we get his information. Remember the label I talked about earlier? Because of that label, we have to know who the trucker is to avoid food contamination or to track it in the event that there is one. We focus on California because it generates 60% of produce in the US, and that can generate over $5 billion for us. When you look at the total US market, the obtainable can generate $166 million and potentially $17 billion in revenue for us. This is what we intend to do this year. Over 400,000 transactions that we can convert 85,000 of them into loads, and potentially more 85,000 because we know that's how many of those loads the farmers would actually be able to be in charge of moving them themselves. We can generate over $8 million just doing that. Our current investors, Ventures Lab, Tim Draper is one of the owners of that fund, and Cowboy Capital raised over $1 million to develop our software last year. And this is my team. This signing is extremely important for us. It has to be very simple because our customers are not tech savvy, so farmers always tell us, if it has more than 3 buttons, I don't want to deal with it, it's too complicated. So ML is my head of this sign. All my engineering team is in Nicaragua, and they develop all the software we have. Diego is my lead engineer there. And we do have iOS and Android apps for our transportation platform. Our advisors are CEO executives at these companies who've sold produce, bought produce, moved produce, and done successful exits.
Sorry, I forgot to give you the warning.
And that's all we have.
I forgot to check the clock, but you nailed it.
Thank you. I had a good coach.
So, how can this community help you out?
Well, if you'd like to write a check, I'll take a check today. Right now, we're actually fundraising for our next round. We're doing $2.5 to $3 million. So if you know any investors who like the space and logistics, send them our way. Connections with any farmers in the area. Sacramento is big in farming, so if you know anybody in the space, or truckers. One of the things that we did with an accounting firm that deals with truckers was get access to 500 truckers that they have, so we're paying them a fee for every load that those truckers get to deliver. So if you know anybody in that space as well that we can do business with, I greatly appreciate it.
Okay, so we'll open it up for questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, you said like 62% of the profit is going to middlemen right now?
Yeah.
Is it? I could probably better understand it if you could maybe detail who some of these middlemen are. I think you said there were 7.
So when we looked at the studies, the product will zigzag between the farmer and the retailer's warehouse. That product will exchange hands multiple times between middlemen. That could be a broker, a distributor, or a wholesaler. And all it is, if he's a farmer, I'm going to that farmer, but you got an order, so you call me, and I told you I have product for you, I'm going to go source it. Right? Then you would have gone to him directly as well and bought product from him. He's not going to want to sell it all to me because he wants to make sure he has enough buyers all the time. And so you're buying product from me that I had him shipped to me, and I'm going to ship it back to you. So the product is moving back and forth. Sometimes I don't even get to see the product. Right? It goes straight from the farm to the retailer. Some of the times what a lot of the smaller buyers, retailers do, they will piggyback off like a Walmart order to try to get lower pricing. So somebody will call a farmer to try to get lower pricing with all that volume, and they have the product shipped to different locations. So there's a lot of different people exchanging hands. That's a big problem for food contamination because too many people are touching the product. And that's where the government looks at where all this is happening. But it's just really multiple people. A lot of these middlemen are people that worked at big companies and when they became brokers because they have the book of business. So they have all these relationships, and we've looked at some of the data that the Produce Marketing Association has, and there's about 30,000 middlemen accounted for that buy and sell produce. That doesn't include a transportation broker. Sometimes these guys do their own transportation. Most of the times we're using a transportation broker. The way the transportation broker works is that he'll have a network of truckers, and he'll get that load for $1,200 and he'll put it out for a bid. The lower bid is going to get a deal. Sometimes what happens is that the truck shows up to pick up product, the broker will call the shipper and say, do not load that truck, I'm sending you a new one. Because somebody else called in and said, hey, I can do it for $100 less. Wow. And that's a big problem. As long as you don't load the truck, you don't have to pay him anything. But that guy may have driven 3 hours to go pick up that load. Now you as a shipper may miss your deadline to deliver that product. So you could potentially have a rejection at the other end because you didn't meet the deadlines. Yes?
So I'm wondering when I see the 62%, like I ask myself, why is there such a big amount going to the middlemen? And I'm just wondering, is the central element in this risk that everyone's trying to mitigate their risk on a product that has a high level of risk? I mean, if food shows up, it's contaminated, or there's not enough, the store doesn't have it, is everyone essentially padding their part of the process in order to cover their risk? Is that the dynamic here?
Some of these guys have insurances for food safety. What it is because of so many hands exchanging. The product is exchanging so many hands, that's where you're getting that increase. It's not necessarily because of food safety. When there is a problem, if Safeway bought product that exchanged hands so many times, what they'll do is they'll call the number on that label and they'll call the farmer directly and say, I got a problem with I've got an issue with your product. There's contamination. They'll skip the whole supply chain because they'll think that this is the source. But if there's people touching that product in between, then there is a risk, but it has nothing to do with the risk.
Is it risk of fulfillment?
Yeah, it's a risk of fulfillment because and this is when I was doing discovery, I'm at a farmer, so I spent 7 months talking to farmers. And when I talked to farmers, they went back to retailers. And retailers said they would love to be able to buy from small farmers. The problem is that they don't have enough volume. So imagine calling, a bunch of farmers to get 10,000 pounds of potatoes, versus they can just call one distributor and place the order, and the distributor worries about sourcing that product.
So, I mean, I would include something like that in your presentation, especially for investors, that essentially what you're doing is you are eliminating risk in the process. And if you eliminate risk, then you bring down the cost, and that's kind of the central value proposition of your platform.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. I definitely appreciate that. Yes?
Yeah, you're saying you need, what, 2 million plus?
First, 2.5 to 3 million, yeah.
Do you have a graph or a pie chart, or what are you going to do with the funds?
Yeah, I don't have it on this slide, but because we build the bulk of the technology, the focus of that money is going to be for growth. We need to bring in more farmers to get to more transactions, and that requires, unfortunately, food on the ground. Farmers are still doing business on a handshake. You have to look them in the eyes and do business that way. So you need to get people on the ground. So it's more for sales and marketing. We need to grow at that point. The numbers that I talked about, 400,000 plus transactions, that's actually about 240 farmers for us to get to. But it just requires, people on the ground. We still do some of the technology, more now building roadblocks for competitors because it's a marketplace. There's no, IPs in it. It's just a pure marketplace. But we can build the roadblocks with the technology.
What about hiring numbers?
If we do the 2.5 million, we're looking probably bringing in a total of about 10 people that can manage sales for both farmers and the transportation. The transportation is the key part for us because that's where our money is. Yeah, about 10 people so now. Yes.
I noticed that you didn't really talk about it a whole lot, but back to what Mita was talking about as far as pulling out the middleman, that's got to increase the speed of all of that as well, right? Going directly from the farmer to the retail and weeding out the middleman, or exchanging of 7 to 10 different points of contact.
No, that's a good point. We do get that question typically, why don't you go to a retailer and sell this to them first? And that's what a lot of competitors do. And the challenge that comes with that is that farmers are always saying, who else is going to charge me for what? Because I'm still not making more money. Nobody's going to pay more for my product. When I sat down with Safeway, Whole Foods, and Walmart, their actual advice was, don't come to us. If you can aggregate the volume, you can tell me I can go straight to that farmer, I'll come shop. You don't have to come and knock on my door. You just need to aggregate the volume. And that creates transparency for them, which is a big deal. Food fraud is such a big problem in the industry because, I'll give you an example. There was a kiwi grower, conventional grower, that found out his product was being sold as an organic product. It was changing hands between 3 distributors, and one of them was relabeling it as organic product.
Oh, wow.
But you go straight to the farmer, there's complete transparency, which is a big deal for consumers and for retailers, right? Produce is what brings people into the store, so the more transparency, the cheaper the product is. The shelf life of the product is a lot longer too, because you're not exchanging hands so many times.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes?
Who are your major competitors at this level?
And competitors, we have there's a company out of the East Coast that's only something very similar to us, Nation Fresh. And the biggest challenge they have right now is they are selling the transportation part of it, but they don't have it. And I only know that because they reached out to us trying to get access to our transportation app. And I know some of the retailers that they took on dropped them because of that. They don't have that platform available. They raised $4 million to just release a marketplace, which was released back in December. The other company is Local Orbit. They're out of Michigan, I believe. The difference of what they do is that they cater to the whole supply chain. So there's no advantage for the farmer to do business there. Those are probably more of the direct competitors. The status quo of the industry is iTrade. It's been in business for about 12 years. They do everything food, but they're in the produce. That's how they started. They're more of a, they're the ones that go into the retailer, sold the software, retailer pushed it down to the vendor, and you have farmers that use it because they need to access the orders, but as soon as their harvest season is over, they shut down the system because they don't want to keep paying for it. It's very expensive. A lot of these farmers will pay $4,000 licensing fee plus $400 per user. So if you have 10 sales guys, some of these farmers will get one license, but then they don't know who sold what. They have to manually track everything in. So those are our competitors in this space. Transportation, we do have competitors in the transportation aspect of it. The problem of just being a transportation company like a Cargomatic is that you still need access to the load. You still had to hire people to call somebody to give you loads. We did this all the other way around. It took longer. It was the best way to do it, to go to the farmer, give them the software, get access to the loads that are coming out, because we can get to a point where we can predict loads and guarantee loads for truckers, which can lower the cost of transportation. So, yeah, different model than that.
Other questions?
Gone once, twice.
How long have you been doing this?
I started this in 2011. I spent a year doing discovery between farmers and truckers. In 2012, I started putting a team together of developers. So a few years now. We were doing this on a, moonlighting. My engineers were moonlighting. The guys that built the first piece of traceability software were the ones that built a supply chain system for Walmart e-commerce. But it was just moonlighting after 100 hours of daily work or their regular jobs. And last year, well, in December of 2015, we got funding $1 million to build the rest of the technology. So, yeah.
Did I see your profit margin?
Hmm?
Did I miss your profit margin?
Maybe you didn't share.
I didn't share it. I just talked about the fact that we charge a flat fee.
I understand that. That's not
per
your
transaction,
profit
but that's not our profit margin. We've calculated it's gonna be about 62% profit margin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alvaro, I have a lot. I get the last question. What were you doing before you came up with this wonderful idea?
I had another startup, actually totally different. I was in mortgage-backed securities when the whole meltdown happened. I used to be in origination, and a couple of friends and I looked and realized that you can mitigate the risk bypassing the banks, the middlemen, and connecting the investor directly with the homeowner, mitigate that risk that way. We have built an algorithm that could predict the mortgage default ahead of time. And we tested it, it worked, but government got so involved in regulating the industry that we just stepped down.
Did any of that technology help you?
The knowledge of building that startup and going through the growing pains of what to do, what not to do, helped a lot. Be more methodical about what I was doing. Realizing that customer discovery was a big deal. You got to understand your customer before you go and build something and try to sell it. And that actually proved very valuable because, I'm lucky to say that we haven't really pivoted from when we started. We did the right steps and it's working out. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.